Emma Rodriguez had been looking forward to her best friend's baby shower for weeks. She and Marcus had driven 3 hours from their small town to attend the celebration for Jessica Walsh, who was expecting her first child with her husband David. The pastel-decorated living room buzzed with excitement as friends and family gathered around the glowing mother-to-be. Emma watched Jessica unwrap tiny onesies and soft blankets, her heart swelling with joy for her childhood friend, who had struggled with fertility for years. Marcus stood near the kitchen doorway, occasionally glancing at his phone with an expression Emma couldn't quite read. She assumed he was checking work emails or sports scores, as he often did during social gatherings. The two had been married for 8 years, and she knew he found baby showers somewhat tedious, though he always accompanied her to support their friends. Emma was busy helping Jessica organize the gifts when she noticed Marcus approaching with a serious look on his face. "Emma, we need to leave," Marcus whispered urgently in her ear, his hand gently touching her shoulder. The sudden interruption startled her as she was mid-conversation with Jessica's mother about nursery decorating ideas. Emma looked up at him with confusion, noticing the tightness around his eyes that she recognized as stress. The shower was in full swing, with guests still arriving and the cake yet to be cut. Leaving now would be incredibly rude and disappointing to Jessica, who had specifically asked Emma to help coordinate the gift-opening ceremony. "What's wrong? Is everything okay?" Emma asked quietly, trying not to draw attention from the other guests. Marcus glanced around the room nervously before leaning closer to her ear. His usual calm demeanor seemed shaken, which immediately put Emma on high alert. In their years together, she had rarely seen him this unsettled, especially in social situations where he typically remained composed and sociable. "I'll explain in the car, but we really need to go now," Marcus insisted, his voice carrying an urgency that made Emma's stomach drop. She could see Jessica across the room, radiant in her yellow maternity dress, laughing at something her sister had said while cradling her rounded belly. The sight made Emma's heart ache at the thought of disappointing her friend by leaving early. She had promised to stay until the end to help clean up, and Jessica had been counting on her support throughout the event. Emma excused herself from the conversation and followed Marcus toward the front door, her mind racing with possibilities. Was there an emergency with his family? Had something happened at work? The urgency in his voice suggested something serious, but his behavior seemed more anxious than panicked. As they gathered their coats and purse, Emma caught Jessica's eye across the room. Her friend's face fell slightly when she realized they were leaving, and Emma felt a pang of guilt wash over her. She mouthed, "Sorry," and pointed to Marcus, hoping Jessica would understand that something had come up. Jessica nodded with a concerned expression, clearly worried that something was wrong. Emma promised herself she would call later to explain and apologize properly. The car ride began in tense silence as Marcus navigated through the suburban streets lined with well-maintained houses and manicured lawns. Emma stared out the passenger window, watching families in their front yards and wondering what could have been so urgent that they had to leave Jessica's shower abruptly. The autumn afternoon was crisp and clear, with golden leaves scattered across the pavement like confetti. She could still hear the laughter and chatter from the party echoing in her mind, along with the disappointment she had seen in Jessica's eyes. "Marcus, you're scaring me. What happened?" Emma finally asked, turning to study her husband's profile. His jaw was clenched, and his knuckles were white as he gripped the steering wheel. The radio played softly in the background, but the cheerful pop music felt oddly out of place given the tension in the car. Emma reached over to lower the volume, wanting to focus entirely on whatever Marcus was about to tell her. Marcus took a deep breath before responding, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. "I overheard David talking on the phone in the garage. He was supposed to be getting more ice from the freezer out there, but he was having what sounded like a very private conversation." Emma's eyebrows furrowed in confusion. David had seemed perfectly normal during the party, doting on Jessica and playing the role of excited father-to-be convincingly. "He was talking to someone named Melissa," Marcus continued, his voice heavy with the weight of what he had discovered. "It wasn't a work call or a family member. The way he was talking, the things he was saying." Marcus paused, seeming to struggle with how to continue. Emma felt her heart begin to race as she anticipated what was coming next. The pieces were starting to form a picture she didn't want to see. "He was telling her he loved her," Marcus said quietly, the words hanging in the air between them like a toxic cloud. "He was making plans to see her later tonight, after the shower. He said he couldn't wait much longer to be with her properly, that this whole pregnancy thing was making everything complicated." Emma felt the blood drain from her face as the implications hit her. Jessica, glowing and happy, surrounded by friends and family celebrating her growing family, had no idea that her husband was having an affair. Emma's mind reeled with the information. How long had this been going on? Was the baby even David's? She thought about Jessica's fertility struggles, how long they had tried to conceive, and how ecstatic she had been when she finally got pregnant. The betrayal felt personal, even though Emma wasn't the one being cheated on. Jessica was like a sister to her, and seeing her friend's joy potentially built on lies made Emma feel physically sick. "Are you absolutely sure that's what you heard?" Emma asked, hoping desperately that Marcus had misunderstood something. But even as she asked the question, she could see in his expression that there was no doubt. Marcus wasn't the type to jump to conclusions or misinterpret situations. He was methodical and careful, which made his certainty all the more devastating. The remainder of the drive home passed in shocked silence as Emma processed the devastating information about David's affair. Her mind kept returning to images from the baby shower, Jessica's radiant smile as she opened gifts, David's seemingly attentive behavior as he fetched her drinks and cushions, and the way he had his hand protectively on her belly during the group photos. The entire scene now felt like an elaborate performance, a carefully constructed lie that had fooled everyone in attendance. Emma's phone buzzed with a text message from Jessica. "Hope everything is okay. Thanks for coming today. The bassinet you picked out is perfect." The message was accompanied by a photo of Jessica holding up the white wicker bassinet that Emma had spent weeks researching and selecting. Seeing her friend's genuine happiness in the photo made Emma's chest tighten with anguish. How could she respond to such innocent joy knowing what she now knew about David's betrayal? "What are we going to do?" Emma asked Marcus as they pulled into their driveway. Their modest two-story house looked exactly the same as when they had left that morning, but everything felt different now. The weight of this secret had changed something fundamental, and Emma wasn't sure how to carry it. Marcus turned off the engine and sat quietly for a moment, his hands still gripping the wheel as if it could anchor him to something stable. "I don't know," Marcus admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I keep thinking about how happy she looked today, how excited she is about becoming a mother. But I also keep thinking about what happens when she finds out. And she will find out eventually, won't she? These things always come to light." Emma nodded, knowing he was right. Affairs rarely stayed hidden forever, especially when the cheating partner was being as careless as David seemed to be. Emma thought about her friendship with Jessica, which had spanned over 15 years since they met in college. They had been each other's bridesmaids, supported each other through career changes and family losses, and celebrated every milestone together. Jessica had been Emma's rock during her own marriage struggles a few years back, offering a couch to sleep on and endless hours of listening without judgment. The idea of keeping such a monumental secret from someone who meant so much to her felt impossible. "Maybe we're wrong," Emma said desperately, grasping for any alternative explanation. "Maybe it was a work colleague, or maybe David was talking about something else entirely. Maybe we misunderstood the context." But even as the words left her mouth, she knew she was reaching for false hope. Marcus's description of the conversation had been too specific and too clear to be anything other than what it appeared to be. Marcus shook his head slowly, his expression pained. "I heard him say, 'I love you too,' at the end of the call, Emma. There was no mistaking the tone or the content. He was planning to meet this Melissa person tonight, and he specifically mentioned needing to be careful because of Jessica's pregnancy. There's no innocent explanation for that kind of conversation." Inside their house, Emma paced the living room while Marcus sat heavily on their couch, his head in his hands. The familiar surroundings that usually brought comfort now felt oppressive as they grappled with the burden of their terrible knowledge. Emma's mind raced through possible scenarios, confronting David directly, telling Jessica immediately, or somehow investigating further to gather more evidence. Each option seemed fraught with potential for disaster and pain. "What if Jessica doesn't believe us?" Emma asked, voicing one of her deepest fears. "What if she thinks we're lying or that we misunderstood something? She's so happy right now, so trusting of David. She might choose to believe him over us, and then we'd lose her friendship and she'd still be living a lie." The thought of losing Jessica's trust while failing to protect her from David's betrayal felt like the worst possible outcome. Marcus looked up from his hands, his eyes red with exhaustion and stress. "But what if we say nothing and she finds out we knew? What if this affair continues throughout her pregnancy and beyond? What if she finds out when the baby is 6 months old or 2 years old and realizes we could have warned her? She'd never forgive us for letting her build her life around a lie." Emma knew he was right, but the weight of either choice felt overwhelming. Emma's phone rang, startling both of them. Jessica's name appeared on the screen, and Emma's heart hammered as she considered whether to answer. She looked at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly, though his expression remained grave. Taking a deep breath, Emma answered the call with as normal a voice as she could manage. "Emma, I'm so glad you picked up." Jessica's cheerful voice filled the room through the speaker. "I wanted to make sure everything was okay. You and Marcus left so suddenly, and you both looked worried. Is everyone in your families all right?" The genuine concern in Jessica's voice made Emma's throat tighten with emotion. Here was her friend, in the middle of celebrating one of the happiest days of her pregnancy, taking time to worry about others. "We're fine, Jess. Marcus just had a work emergency that couldn't wait," Emma lied, hatting herself for the deception but unable to find words for the truth. "I'm so sorry we had to leave early. The shower was beautiful, and you looked absolutely radiant. I hope the rest of the party went well." Emma tried to inject as much warmth and normalcy into her voice as possible, though she felt like she was performing a role in a play she had never rehearsed. "Oh, thank goodness. I was worried something serious had happened," Jessica laughed with relief. "The party was perfect, and everyone loved the games you suggested. David has been such an angel today, helping with everything and being so attentive. I keep thinking about how lucky I am to have such a wonderful husband and such amazing friends like you. This baby is going to be so loved." Emma closed her eyes, fighting back tears at the cruel irony of Jessica's words. After ending the call with Jessica, Emma found herself unable to sit still. She moved restlessly through their house, straightening objects that didn't need straightening and opening cabinets only to close them again. The normalcy of Jessica's voice, her happiness and trust in David, made the situation feel even more surreal and heartbreaking. Marcus watched her with concern, understanding that his wife was struggling with the same internal conflict that was tearing him apart. "We have to tell her," Emma finally said, stopping in the middle of their kitchen. "I can't live with this secret, Marcus. Every time she talks about David, every time she mentions how happy she is, I'm going to remember what we know. I'm going to watch her building her life around someone who's betraying her, and I won't be able to stand it." Marcus nodded slowly, though his expression remained troubled. "But how do we tell her? And when?" Marcus asked, raising the practical questions that Emma had been avoiding. "She's 7 months pregnant and glowing with happiness. Do we destroy her world right now, while she's supposed to be avoiding stress for the baby's sake? Do we wait until after the baby is born? Do we try to get more evidence first?" Each question felt like navigating through a minefield of potential consequences. Emma slumped into a kitchen chair, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on her shoulders. "I don't think there's ever going to be a good time for this kind of news, but waiting feels like being complicit in David's deception. Every day we wait is another day she's living in a fantasy while he's probably continuing his affair." The thought of David going home to Jessica after meeting with his lover made Emma feel physically sick. Marcus joined her at the kitchen table, reaching across to take her hand. "What if we try to find out more information first? Maybe we can figure out who this Melissa person is, or get some evidence that Jessica can't deny or dismiss. If we're going to blow up her world, we should at least make sure we have enough proof that she can't convince herself we're wrong." Emma considered this approach, seeing both the wisdom and the danger in it. "That feels like spying, though," Emma said uncertainly. "And what if David catches us investigating? What if we make things worse somehow?" The idea of becoming detectives in their friends' personal lives felt wrong, but so did standing by while Jessica was being betrayed. Emma had never faced such an impossible moral dilemma, where every potential action seemed to lead to pain and complications. Their conversation was interrupted by Marcus's phone buzzing with a text message. He glanced at it and frowned, then showed the screen to Emma. It was from David. "Thanks for coming today, man. Hope the work emergency wasn't too serious. We should grab beers soon and catch up." The casual, friendly tone of the message made Emma's stomach turn. David was continuing to play his role as the devoted husband and loyal friend, apparently without any guilt or conscience about his double life. "He's got some nerve," Emma muttered, staring at the message. The fact that David could send such a normal, friendly text just hours after Marcus had overheard his conversation with his lover showed a level of deception and compartmentalization that was truly disturbing. That evening, Emma found herself unable to concentrate on anything. She tried to read a book, but the words blurred together as her mind continued to race with thoughts of Jessica and David. She attempted to watch television with Marcus, but every commercial featuring happy families felt like a mockery of the situation. The weight of their secret seemed to grow heavier with each passing hour, and Emma began to understand how secrets could poison relationships and corrode trust. Marcus was equally restless, packing between the living room and kitchen, occasionally picking up his phone as if to call someone, then setting it down again. "I keep thinking about David's behavior today," he said during one of his circuits through the room. "He seemed so normal, so convincing. If I hadn't overheard that phone call, I never would have suspected anything. It makes me wonder how long this has been going on." Emma nodded, remembering David's attentive behavior at the shower. He had brought Jessica her favorite sparkling water, helped her open gifts when the wrapping paper was stubborn, and even cleaned up spills without being asked. To everyone present, he had appeared to be the perfect expectant father, devoted and caring. The performance had been so convincing that Emma now questioned whether she had ever really known David at all. "Do you think Jessica suspects anything?" Emma asked, though she already knew the answer. Jessica's trust in David had been evident in every interaction, every fond glance, every casual mention of their future together. She had spoken about David with such confidence and love that it was clear she had no idea her marriage was built on deception. Marcus shook his head definitively. "Not at all. She's completely trusting, which makes this even worse. She's not the type of person who would naturally be suspicious or paranoid. She believes in people, especially David. That's going to make this revelation even more devastating when it comes." Emma felt a fresh wave of sadness wash over her as she considered how much this betrayal would hurt her friend. The couple spent the rest of the evening in a state of anxious limbo, both knowing they needed to make a decision, but neither feeling ready to commit to a course of action. They discussed various approaches, confronting David first to give him a chance to confess to Jessica himself, gathering more evidence to present to Jessica, or simply telling Jessica directly what Marcus had overheard. Each option carried significant risks and potential for unintended consequences. As they prepared for bed, Emma realized that sleep would likely be elusive. The image of Jessica's joyful face at the baby shower kept replaying in her mind, along with the terrible knowledge of what was happening behind the scenes of her friend's supposedly perfect life. Emma had always believed that honesty was the foundation of good relationships, but she had never faced a situation where honesty would cause such immediate and devastating pain. "Tomorrow," Emma said quietly as they turned off the lights, "we'll figure out what to do tomorrow." But even as she spoke the words, she knew that tomorrow would bring no easy answers, only the continued weight of their terrible secret. The next morning brought no relief from the emotional turmoil that had kept both Emma and Marcus awake for most of the night. Emma's coffee tasted bitter, and the morning news seemed to blur together into meaningless noise as her thoughts remained fixated on Jessica and David. Marcus sat across from her at their breakfast table, his own coffee growing cold as he stared out the window with a distant expression. Emma's phone chimed with another message from Jessica, still on cloud nine from yesterday. "David surprised me with breakfast in bed this morning and said he wants to start painting the nursery this weekend. I'm so blessed to have him. Can't wait for you to meet your honorary niece or nephew." The message was accompanied by a photo of an elaborate breakfast tray with fresh flowers and Jessica's beaming face in the background. The cruel irony of the message hit Emma like a physical blow. While Jessica was marveling at David's apparent thoughtfulness, Emma couldn't help but wonder if his sudden burst of romantic gestures was motivated by guilt over his affair. The timing seemed too convenient, too calculated. Emma showed the message to Marcus, who winced visibly upon reading it. "This is torture," Emma said, setting her phone face down on the table. "Every message she sends makes me feel worse. She's so happy, so trusting, and meanwhile we're sitting here knowing that her entire world is built on lies. I don't know how much longer I can pretend everything is normal." Marcus reached across the table to squeeze her hand, his own face drawn with exhaustion and stress. "I've been thinking about it all night," Marcus said slowly. "I keep coming back to the same conclusion. We have to tell her, not because it's easy or comfortable, but because it's right. Jessica deserves to know the truth about her marriage, especially before the baby comes. She deserves the chance to make informed decisions about her future." Emma nodded, knowing he was right but still dreading the conversation ahead. They spent the morning researching how to approach such a delicate situation, reading articles about supporting friends through infidelity and betrayal. Most of the advice emphasized the importance of being prepared for various reactions, from disbelief and anger to denial and blame. Emma realized that telling Jessica the truth might very well end their friendship, but keeping the secret would definitely corrupt it. Emma decided to call Jessica and suggest meeting for lunch, using the pretense of wanting to hear more details about the baby shower and discuss nursery decoration ideas. Jessica readily agreed, excited to have an excuse to get out of the house and spend time with her best friend. They arranged to meet at their favorite cafe downtown at noon. As Emma prepared to leave for the lunch meeting, she felt a mixture of determination and dread. She knew that this conversation would change everything for Jessica, and possibly for their friendship as well. Marcus hugged her tightly before she left, offering his support and promising to be available if she needed him during or after the difficult conversation. The cafe was busy with the lunch crowd, filled with the usual mix of business people, students and friends catching up over sandwiches and salads. Emma arrived early and chose a quiet corner table, hoping to have some privacy for what was likely to be an emotional conversation. She ordered a cup of tea and tried to calm her nerves while waiting for Jessica to arrive. Jessica walked in looking radiant, her pregnancy glow evident even in the harsh fluorescent lighting of the cafe. She was wearing a flowing maternity top in a soft blue color that complemented her complexion, and her hair was styled in loose waves that framed her face beautifully. Emma felt a pang of sadness knowing that she was about to shatter her friend's happiness, possibly forever. "Emma, you look tired. Are you feeling okay?" Jessica asked with immediate concern as she settled into the chair across from Emma. The genuine care in her voice made Emma's task feel even more difficult. Jessica had always been the type of friend who noticed when something was wrong and offered help without being asked. "I'm fine, just didn't sleep well last night," Emma replied, which was technically true. Jessica nodded sympathetically and launched into an animated recap of the previous day's shower, describing the gifts she had received and the advice various guests had offered about pregnancy and motherhood. Emma tried to listen and respond appropriately, but her mind was focused on finding the right moment to bring up the real reason for their meeting. After they had ordered their meals and Jessica had finished her enthusiastic description of the nursery plans she and David had discussed, Emma took a deep breath and decided to transition into the difficult topic. "Jess, I need to talk to you about something important, something that happened yesterday at the shower." Jessica's expression immediately shifted to concern, and she leaned forward attentively. "What is it? You're scaring me a little," Jessica said, her hand instinctively moving to rest on her belly. Emma noticed the protective gesture and felt another wave of sadness for what her friend was about to experience. The innocence and trust in Jessica's eyes made Emma want to retreat from her mission, but she forced herself to continue. "Marcus overheard something yesterday that we think you need to know about," Emma began carefully, watching Jessica's face for any signs of understanding or alarm. Jessica's brow furrowed slightly, but she remained attentive and calm, clearly not anticipating the bombshell that was about to be dropped. Emma realized there was no gentle way to deliver this kind of news, no perfect words that would soften the blow of betrayal and deception. "What kind of something?" Jessica asked, her voice taking on a slightly cautious tone. Emma could see that Jessica was beginning to sense that this conversation was heading somewhere serious and potentially unpleasant. Emma took another deep breath and forced herself to continue, knowing that once she spoke the words, there would be no taking them back. Marcus went to the garage to help David get more ice for the drinks, but when he got there, David was on the phone with someone named Melissa. Emma watched Jessica's face closely, looking for any sign of recognition or concern, but Jessica simply looked confused. "Melissa, I don't think David knows anyone named Melissa," Jessica said slowly, her brow furrowing as she tried to place the name. "Was it work-related? He's been dealing with a lot of new clients lately." Emma could see that Jessica's mind was automatically searching for innocent explanations, trying to make sense of information that didn't fit with her understanding of her husband. Emma shook her head gently, wishing desperately that there was an innocent explanation to offer. "It wasn't a work call, Jess. Marcus heard David tell this woman that he loved her. He was making plans to meet her later that night, after the shower ended. He specifically mentioned that your pregnancy was making their situation complicated." Emma's voice was soft but clear, making sure there was no ambiguity about what she was saying. Jessica's face went through a series of changes as Emma's words sank in. First confusion, then disbelief, then a flash of something that might have been understanding, followed quickly by denial. "No, that's not possible," Jessica said, shaking her head firmly. "Marcus must have misunderstood something. David would never. We're having a baby together. He's been so excited, so involved in everything. There has to be another explanation." Emma had expected this reaction, but it still hurt to see her friend's desperate need to reject the truth. "I know this is hard to hear, and I know it doesn't make sense given how David has been acting, but Marcus was very clear about what he heard. There was no mistaking the tone or the content of the conversation. I wouldn't be telling you this if we weren't absolutely certain." Jessica sat back in her chair, her hand still resting protectively on her belly. Emma could see her friend's mind racing, trying to process information that contradicted everything she believed about her marriage and her husband. The color had drained from Jessica's face, and her breathing had become slightly rapid. Emma began to worry about the stress this conversation was putting on both Jessica and the baby. "Maybe Marcus misheard something," Jessica said, but her voice lacked conviction. Emma could see that despite her words, Jessica was beginning to consider the possibility that the information might be true. Or maybe it was a misunderstanding. David's been working so hard lately. Maybe he was talking about a work situation or helping a female colleague with something personal. Emma reached across the table to take Jessica's hand, but Jessica pulled back slightly, as if contact might make the conversation more real. "Jess, I wish there was another explanation. I wish Marcus had misunderstood or misheard something. But he was very specific about what David said. He heard him say, 'I love you too' at the end of the call, and David mentioned meeting this person later that night." The silence that followed Emma's words was deafening. Jessica stared down at her untouched salad, her mind clearly racing as she tried to process the information she had just received. Emma could see her friend's hands trembling slightly, and she wished there was something she could do to ease the shock and pain. The bustling noise of the cafe around them seemed oddly inappropriate for such a life-changing conversation. "How long do you think this has been going on?" Jessica asked quietly, her voice barely audible above the ambient noise of the restaurant. The question surprised Emma, who had expected continued denial rather than this sudden shift toward acceptance. Jessica's tone was flat, almost emotionless, as if she was discussing something that was happening to someone else rather than her own life. "We don't know," Emma answered honestly. "Yesterday was the first time we had any indication that anything was wrong. Looking back, neither Marcus nor I noticed any changes in David's behavior or any signs that he was being unfaithful. He's been very good at hiding it if this has been going on for a while." Emma tried to be as gentle as possible while still being truthful about the situation. Jessica nodded slowly, her eyes still fixed on her plate. He has been working late more often recently, and he's been very attentive to me, almost overly so. I thought it was because of the pregnancy, because he was excited about becoming a father. But maybe, she trailed off, unable to finish the thought that his extra attention might have been motivated by guilt rather than love. Emma felt her heart breaking for her friend as she watched Jessica begin to connect dots that painted a picture of deception and betrayal. "Jess, I'm so sorry. I know this is the last thing you needed to hear, especially right now with the baby coming. Marcus and I agonized over whether to tell you, but we felt like you deserved to know the truth." Jessica looked up at Emma for the first time since the revelation, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Thank you for telling me. I know it couldn't have been easy, and I know you were trying to protect me. I don't know what to do with this information. I don't know how to process it or what it means for my marriage and my baby." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word, and Emma felt tears welling up in her own eyes. "You don't have to figure everything out right now," Emma said gently. "This is a lot to absorb, and you're dealing with pregnancy hormones on top of everything else. Maybe you should go home and rest, and we can talk more later when you've had time to think." Emma was concerned about Jessica's pale complexion and the way she seemed to be struggling to catch her breath. Jessica shook her head firmly. "I can't go home and pretend everything is normal. I can't sit in the nursery we've been planning together, looking at baby clothes and furniture, knowing that David might be lying about everything. I need to confront him. I need to hear him say it." The determination in Jessica's voice was mixed with pain and anger, creating a combination that worried Emma greatly. Emma tried to dissuade Jessica from immediately confronting David, concerned about her friend's emotional state and the potential impact of such a stressful situation on the pregnancy. "Maybe you should wait until you've had time to calm down and think about how you want to handle this. Confronting him while you're this upset might not lead to the kind of conversation you need to have." Emma could see that Jessica was running on adrenaline and shock, which might not be the best state for such an important discussion. But Jessica was resolute, her maternal instincts apparently overriding her emotional turmoil. "I can't live with uncertainty, Emma. I can't spend tonight lying next to him wondering if he's thinking about another woman. I need to know the truth, all of it, right now. My baby deserves better than a father who lives a double life." The strength in Jessica's voice was impressive, but Emma could see the vulnerability underneath the determination. Emma offered to drive Jessica home, not wanting her friend to be alone during such a difficult time. Jessica accepted the offer gratefully, leaving her own car in the cafe parking lot to retrieve later. During the drive to Jessica's house, the two women sat in relative silence, both lost in their own thoughts about what was about to unfold. Emma wondered if she should call Marcus to let him know what was happening, but decided to wait until after the confrontation with David. Jessica's house looked the same as always from the outside. A charming two-story colonial with a well-maintained garden and a white picket fence that seemed to symbolize suburban happiness and stability. But Emma knew that appearances could be deceiving, as they had learned so painfully in the past 24 hours. The house that had once represented Jessica and David's love and commitment now felt like a facade hiding painful truths. David's car was in the driveway, indicating that he was home from work earlier than usual. Jessica noticed this too, and Emma could see her friend's jaw clench with determination. "Maybe this is a sign," Jessica said grimly. "Maybe it's time for all the secrets to come out." Emma squeezed Jessica's hand supportively, wishing she could do more to help her friend through what was about to be one of the most difficult conversations of her life. As they approached the front door, Emma offered to wait in the car to give Jessica privacy for the confrontation with David. But Jessica shook her head, asking Emma to come inside for moral support. "I need someone here who knows the truth," Jessica explained. "Someone who can witness whatever happens and help me stay strong if I start to waver." Emma agreed, understanding that her friend needed an ally during this crucial moment. They entered the house together, calling out to David to announce their arrival. He appeared from the kitchen, looking surprised but pleased to see Emma. "Hey, Emma, great to see you again so soon. How was lunch, ladies?" His casual, friendly demeanor made Emma feel sick, knowing what they were about to discuss. The normalcy of his behavior felt like another layer of deception, another performance in the elaborate lie he had been living. Jessica stood in the entryway of her own home, looking at her husband with new eyes that saw past the familiar smile and welcoming demeanor. Emma positioned herself slightly behind Jessica, ready to offer support, but allowing her friend to take the lead in this crucial conversation. The afternoon light streaming through the windows seemed too bright and cheerful for what was about to unfold. "David, we need to talk," Jessica said, her voice steady despite the emotional storm Emma knew was raging inside her. David's expression shifted slightly, perhaps picking up on the serious tone, but he still seemed unsuspecting of what was coming. He moved closer to Jessica, reaching out as if to put his arm around her, but she stepped back slightly, creating distance between them. "Of course, honey. Is everything okay? You look a little pale," David said, his voice filled with what appeared to be genuine concern. Emma marveled at his ability to seem caring and attentive even while living such a duplicitous life. She wondered if this was a skill he had developed over time or if deception came naturally to him. Jessica took a deep breath before continuing. "Yesterday at the baby shower, Marcus overheard you having a phone conversation in the garage. A conversation with someone named Melissa." Emma watched David's face carefully, looking for any telltale signs of recognition or panic. For just a moment, she thought she saw something flicker across his features, but he recovered quickly. "Melissa, I'm not sure I know what you mean," David said, but his voice lacked the confident tone it had carried moments before. Emma could see him mentally scrambling, trying to figure out exactly what had been overheard and how much damage control might be needed. The fact that he didn't immediately ask for clarification or express confusion about why this was important spoke volumes about his guilt. Jessica pressed on, her voice growing stronger as she continued. "Marcus heard you tell this woman that you loved her. He heard you making plans to meet her later that night. He heard you mention that my pregnancy was making your situation with her complicated." Each accusation was delivered like a physical blow, and Emma could see David's composure beginning to crack under the weight of specific details. David's face went through a series of changes as he realized that his secret had been discovered. First came denial. "That's not what happened. Marcus must have misunderstood something." Then came deflection. "I can't believe you're accusing me of this based on second-hand information." Finally, Emma could see the calculation in his eyes as he tried to determine how much he could continue to deny versus how much he might need to admit.